Shalom bort, bort on the holiday saold, o cabana bana de saold, o la cucarola con spama, jainka let's loader and bone, pero the rockstar alles on the hein, jonga gika kula vetstavine, Lola kika brola con spanna, Jainga, let's lover and ball. You know, I feel kind of bad about the mean stuff I said about Null yesterday, but it is what it is, man. If he's really gonna try and cross a line that potentially kills tens of millions of people for pennies of fiat hucked at him by rabid, mentally ill Zionists, then he deserves that. He deserves worse. For all his life, he deserves worse, unless he repents. Like Nick Rekieta should have repented. When Nick found out his child tested positive for cocaine, he should have been in tears. He should have thanked the people that told him off. He should have vowed to change his ways forevermore. Null 2. Joshua Moon 2. When he saw his demonic masters are actually cucked little weaklings whose mouths write checks their Crohn's disease-riddled bodies can't cash, he should have apologized. Hell, I'm not saying he should have done this, but it would have behooved him to start praising Muslims for being such peaceniks in the face of overwhelming persecution and attack. But nope. He wants to project his own pedophilic past on Muslims consistently. That's the entire onus of it. It's nothing to do with Muslims. It's everything to do with the fact that he is a pedophile who has been caught out for being a pedophile. Everybody calls him a pedophile, and he has this guilt about being a pedophile, and he projects that onto Muslims, calling them pedophiles. He thinks he's going to be the next Sean Hannity or some such nonsense, not realizing that Tucker's style of political commentary is the future. When Tucker would call him a little monster for his war worship in recent weeks. That's exactly what he is. He's been this for a while. I guess I've been watching him with rose-colored glasses because I saw the ability to affect change, but he doesn't remember the stuff that he copies from people. If he does, he deliberately obfuscates the actual source of a lot of his inspiration, specifically so that he can pretend that he's actually creating the things that he steals from other people. Consistently, he's one of the least creative people that I know. Based on all the pathetic, self-degrading things I've seen him do recently, a monster is exactly what he is. I'm glad things ended up the way that they did. All the attacks, all the lies, excising me out of a community where I had friends, people that loved me and enjoyed my company, on false pretenses. Everything ended up making perfect sense in the long run. He's a fraud, and I am not. I am genuine. He is a fraud. He's been ingratiating himself in LawTube specifically because he wants to become aggressively litigious like H3H3. That's why he fantasizes about taking $1 million+ out of Minnesota coffers. And you know, it's okay because they're a deep blue state, right? You could just abuse your own country, right? Freak. You know, from a young age, I knew the world was uncaring and cruel. I wasn't prepared for it to also be gay and retarded, though. One day I'm gonna smoke a backwoods and unified sedan. Haters will say it'll never happen. I got a nice little margarita here. Powdered lime, powdered strawberry, freshly squeezed lime, honey, maple syrup, and tequila. Pretty good stuff. Really quite tasty, but I gotta slow down on that stuff because I can't drink it so fast, it'll make me queasy. Oh, and Mr. Iscariot Chew, if you're still interested in an interview, send me an email at natethew@gmail, NATEATHEW gmail.com, and we'll figure something out. Some Skype service or something. I don't know what they've turned into. I think it was like Teams or something. I'm interested in your offer. I'm interested in what you have to say. I still love people in the sector. I still love this sector for its potential and what it's done in the past. I just don't like Null selling out everything. And he's got to pay. Oh my gosh, he's going to pay for that. I already see him paying for that. He's going to pay for that, all right. Less and less people. Important, valuable, giving, beneficial people will start leaving his community because of his decisions recently. Guarantee you. Guarantee you. It's already happening. It's already in the process of happening. Oh, poor little man. Poor little man. I don't understand how in the world he can slip into being that stupid. Gosh, it really goes to show. I was doing something in there. I was actually doing something in there. You know, when I first met Null, he talked about wanting to melt people down into biofuel. Human beings. Which is like, come to find out, that's just Mencius Moldbug. That's just Curtis Yarvin. Literally, the things that that Null espouses rhetorically is the living body of the transhumanists and the people like Peter Thiel and Elon Musk. They are already eating his lunch. And it's super funny that he complained some years ago about the fat faggot PPP, not calling him that, that's me quoting him, eating off of his plate when he eats off of PPP's plate and Andy Worski's plate constantly. By the way, I find it very fascinating that Zionists consistently attack Andy Worski and call him a pedophile, despite the fact that Andy Worski specifically shies away from criticizing nose-like behavior on the regular. It's very strange. I have no idea why they do that, other than the fact that, you know, just putting anybody down that they can get their hands on is a way of elevating their, like, you know, cursed existence, literally cursed existence, ancestry after ancestry after ancestry of people who didn't care, people who are selfish, people who stab their own family in the back, as opposed to the European, descended from pagan, but also, most importantly, emboldened by Christianity, chain of events, which is love after love after love after love. This is especially true in Irish, Swiss, you could even say Spanish and Portuguese populations. Unfortunately, we all know the stereotype of the German going, once upon a time, a little boy did not eat their dinner. Then the Sherkloma came and they ate his thumbs, and now the boy has no thumbs. Good night. I have no idea when that started. But, like, Germans are a little weird, okay? Slavic people even care about their families more than Germans. You know, it's weird. I don't know. It's the environmental pressure thing. I think the Germans and the Japanese are actually way more similar than we assume when we already think that they're pretty similar. I think the Japanese and the Irish share some similarities, but the Germans and the Japanese share more similarities. And it really goes to show that the Japanese had a terrible, like, spawn location. Earthquakes, you know, tsunamis, well, they're called typhoons or something, like cyclones. Earthquakes, cyclones, tsunamis, you know, extreme environmental pressure, low resources, you know, the sea of wind and baby ghost, you know, that stuff. Like, genuinely scary environment compared to Ireland, which is like rainbows and giant deer and like trees everywhere and sacred groves around every corner, you know. And that's not necessarily like God loves the Irish more than the Japanese. I don't believe that. I really don't. I don't know. I don't know, guys. But, like, the Japanese have a beautiful, beautiful island. And they care a lot about nature. And I think that the Japanese, they not only have the highest IQs in the world, this has been confirmed. Like, every single year they come out with, like, 143 IQ on average, compared to the 100 IQ international standard. You see, every nation has its own 100 IQ, and then there's the international 100 IQ, of which, unfortunately, like, the Nepal, Bhutan people, they score the lowest because they're ancient people living on, like, the hills, farming root vegetables and not changing much in the last 10,000, 20,000 years. And the highest IQ are the Japanese. Immense social pressure, constant change, always working towards, striving towards, holding themselves to extreme standards so that they can move towards a better and more advanced future, and not in a way that only enriches a few people. Although they do have a little bit of an imperial cult around their emperor. All ancient civilizations have this, especially civilizations that haven't changed much in the last, 1,000 years culturally. Love the Japanese, really do. But they do have their problems. A lot of smart people suffer in silence because they know that the psychic link they create between the people that they share their pain with it's far less beneficial for everyone than those created through glory and love. It's crazy how Germans put so much energy into venerating their new synthetic High German language without a second thought about how clunky and ugly it is compared to something like, Greek. Literally, say anything in German, then work out how to say the same thing in Greek. All Germanic languages are building blocks compared to the beautiful statues, hand-carved and chiseled, that both the Greek and the French employ. And it's funny that the French always, I think their language was very much informed by a study of, the Trojan Wars and all that. If you don't know, the French were the biggest crusaders. They occupied Naxos, they occupied Rhodes, they occupied Cyprus, and they occupied Jerusalem. Those were all Frankish cultures, of Charlemagne and France proper. Charlemagne created France. That's West Francia. Central Francia, it broke up into a bunch of very, 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 very rich states along the Rhine. And East Francia is the Holy Roman Empire, as we know. We know that. It was easy. Although I suppose we get what we deserve at the end of the day. Imagine spending 30 minutes rolling the dice on your AI prompt to see if it will guess the image you want slightly correct, instead of spending that time studying techniques to create it yourself, like learning how to use GIMP in a very, very quick and resourceful way. That's the end of the day. You get what you deserve. Some people think it's the same thing. Exact same people think flipping Bitcoin on Coinbase is a way of becoming successful. On the surface, it may appear that way. But you have gained no skill or talent. You have not flexed. You have not grown. You're a gambler twisted by financial subversion into a cornerstone of the international black market. Noble houses have been refined for centuries to be able to spot a fraud with incredible accuracy. One day you will die, and a Bitcoin logo will be all that marks your grave. There's a fine line between cowardice and constitution. Meekness is a factor of both, but the degree to which your judgment of others pervades your peace is the degree to which you will flee in the face of friction. I have immense respect for HVAC workers, but very little respect for car mechanics. I've come to assume the worst in mechanics. Both are important for modern life, especially in America. But the mechanic tends to be aggrieved, selfish, untrustworthy, angry at red lights because they can't flex their artificial muscle, when in comparison to walking, red lights and stop signs are a non-issue. Whereas the HVAC mechanic is a savior, a doctor of your house, keeping your food from spoiling. Like plumbers, they are unsung heroes. Whereas mechanics are just like, yeah, man, I'm doing my job. I'm great at it. Oh, you don't know enough about my job in order to figure out if I'm robbing you? Well, I guess your car's about to get messed up, buddy. Ha ha ha! Sorry about that. A lot of Orthodox Christians get caught up in some really dumb rhetoric about human nature not being degraded. And it's the exact same thing as looking down and thinking the world is flat. Fallen nature. Redeemed nature. These terms are important to contrast our original natures and the path that humanity has taken. There were always prophets and holy men that broke away from the pack, But the curse of Babylon isn't some gang of clickety-clack demons under Mesopotamia. No, no, no. It's a shedding of innocence, like the wilting of a flower to give birth to the seeds of modernity. And those seeds scattered far and wide, and they sowed very, very deep. By the way, for anybody wondering what caused the Starship catastrophe and subsequent giant explosion, it was the fact that Elon, in all of his Aspergian wisdom, decided to replace the patented Freemasonic 33rd degree booster stage, I believe that's what it's called, not a rocket scientist, with his own special Snowflake 42 rocket design. And it's not balanced properly because of course it isn't. Musk drives away all his best workers by being a psychopath. This is exactly the sort of thing that Null is in the process of doing with the exact same culture. And I'm not sure if it's 42 as in 420, which is simultaneously the weed day, favored number in meme cultures, and also Hitler's birthday, April 20th, or if it's a reference to the Japanese word for death, shi ni, 42. I'm not sure which is the reason why he chose 42 rockets, but frankly, I wouldn't be shocked if he ended up putting 69 rockets on there. That would be epic, I think. Run it. Scuffed Realtor is a really good show if you're looking for something to replace Matt of the internet, since Null can't handle copying Twitter 2 times a week. Loser. Scuffed Realtor is actually funny. It's inspired, it's original. You'll actually learn useful information that'll benefit your life instead of watching cherry-picked clips of crazy black people and filling your memory with Reddit copy pasta and trannies. Is that really what you want to have flash before your eyes when you die? A bunch of Reddit copy pasta and trannies? Get the hell out of there. That is not worth your life. I really like columns in architecture, but they have to be done right in order to avoid looking like some Near East polytheist bullcrap. Personally, I prefer red brick columns with uniform mortar, like kind of like a grouting that ends up being perfectly uniform. I know it's not grout, just the uniform mortar that looks good and is nice and solid and doesn't crack, and then red bricks of very slightly varying degrees. Those are the most beautiful columns, in my opinion. Good American columns. Not this, I'm going to try to look like I'm building a new Temple of Solomon on Jeffrey Epstein's island crap. None of that. We're not Joshua Moon. We don't pretend to indulge that sort of behavior for money. We're not playing that game. I was thinking, and I genuinely believe every state should be a swing state. Naturally, the Republican Party is there to grift off of the grievances people have over both social degeneracy and multiculturalism that is simultaneously unavoidable in a country like America and exploited by malicious operators to divide and conquer. And the Democratic Party, which exists to grift off of social Darwinism, the revulsion of social Darwinism practiced by the right and the far right, the natural disgust at ever increasing or decreasing moral quality of racists and ever-increasing racism, and especially in recent decades, the war drum-pounding neoconservatives that everybody has grown to hate on the right and the left. Obviously, there are degenerate Republicans, and there are warmonger Democrats, but these are the party lines. However, the reality has shown itself time and time again. It's that deep blue and deep red states have no accountability. Their voters will vote blue or vote red no matter who, because the party lines they're fed are laced with whataboutism. Whataboutism being first described in the Soviet Union as a way of distracting from failures by fingering an enemy's weakness. Usually the same weakness that you're criticized from. So, say somebody criticized the Politburo of the Soviet Union. Well, they point over to America and go, well, look at the bad things that they do. It doesn't really solve the problems in your own country. It doesn't really help you attach and fix the issues that are in arm's reach. Oh, and Sinch is definitely a really bad guy too. The Remembrancer just dropped a compendium on YouTube, and yeah, just as gross as Nurgle, just as destructive as Korn, just as selfish as Slanesh, but with a fancier facade. All right, y'all. That's good for today. Hope everyone has a good one. Has a good week. Looking forward to 4th of July because I feel so patriotic right now. Thank God for our president selling Israel to screw off. All right, y'all. Cheers.